just getting started? Like, where are you guys at right now?
I'm on the hunt. I'm over in Seattle looking for low voltage data installers or security installation monitoring. And there's just not many of them out there, and I can't get brokers to do their jobs. So I'm the one cold calling, making a list, searching through, and working it.
Oh yeah, nice, Nick. All power to you.
Thank you. I'll take all the power I can get.
Well, I mean, I don't know if you've listened to do you listen to Acquiring Minds at all?
I do. So I need to keep myself motivated as I'm going through this. This and that podcast are fantastic.
I hear that. Well, it seems like a lot of people that have been successful as well to do something like that with their search as well. So good luck. Why don't we get started with a decent bit to go through, and I want to give plenty of time for like Q&A afterwards. Basically, I made some slides based upon my past, so a little background on me, my past 14 years in digital marketing. The last 5.5 of those I spent building my agency, trying to help agencies and other clients, mainly in home services and e-commerce, improve their ROI. In particular, it varies based upon the industry, right? But each client, the ones that succeed in particular, usually have a direct path to improving their odds and succeeding overall with digital marketing in particular. If anything, it's kind of odd because a lot of what I've done in paid media and SEO and what my team has done is kind of evolved into business coaching to a certain degree, because a lot of digital marketing is synonymous with the vitality of the business. But why don't we get into basically what we'll go over? So mainly I'm just going to run through these slides for basically like what I've seen help these clients, like my clients, prior clients, and my friends' clients succeed, what I would see helping you succeed either once you get a business or with your business as you're getting started. And then obviously doing a Q&A for any like questions you have digital marketing wise, whether it's something like strategic or something like how do I access my Facebook account, which is actually quite a common question. But why don't we begin? Let's see. So fundamentals. I usually like to start with the goal and then go from there. It sounds very basic. I assume most of you, if not all of you, are very driven individuals. You've spent time trying to find businesses, you're cold calling, you're doing a lot of outreach and things of that nature. But with your digital marketing efforts too, it's important to do the same thing here as well. Getting into that, what I would do is figure out where you are and where you want to be really. It's good to have another agency or consultant do this for you so you can run the day-to-day, of course. But say if you're trying to be scrappy, just getting started, it's good to just figure out what exactly you're doing to measure things. And if you're not measuring it, try to measure it to get a benchmark. And then the next step after that is figure out what exactly is leading to your success. So usually that's revenue, of course, but within that, that's number of clients served, how many calls we need to get a certain number of clients, things like that. And in order to do that, you need to build up funnel for things like impressions, clicks, conversions, and then demos, so on and so forth, depending upon the business. What I like to do besides that is brainstorm as well. So like see which channel or channels clients are working on, see what's working versus not to get a little more efficient, see what we could do for free or low cost at first, and then areas where we could just spend more to get more as well too. But a lot of that starts with the goal. I mean, without that, we're kind of just like, going in a random direction for the sake of. Part of that in particular, I mean, to get an excellent ROI, we need to figure out what the ROI is. A lot of that's dependent upon what you're looking for, your investors looking for, or what the bank is looking for, of course. I like to keep this as simple as possible. Usually with a lot of prospectuses, or say if you're getting into that FID phase, or like you're initially running the business, you should be able to get a better grasp of these numbers. That's something that I help businesses do for free before starting, because just defining success is very important. But here's just a little example of how I would do that with some nice round numbers in a clean manner. Part of this too is data gathering and just making sure we have like a valid source of data based upon something 90 days or 180 days ideally. But say for example, if you make $5,000 per client, say if you're installing HVAC systems or something of that sort, hypothetical, right? And in order to get each client, you need to spend about $1,000. That's a 5-to-1 ROI. Now, is that good or not? This is where I say that digital marketing kind of has evolved into business coaching to a certain degree. It really depends based upon your industry benchmarks, and also it depends upon what you're looking to do with the business to grow. Some folks like to maintain the current ROI, and that's excellent. But it's like saying, okay, that's wonderful, but I want to be able to go from, say, 25 clients to 50 clients while maintaining that same ROI. Great. Or the flip side is I want to be able to get that ROI up, so spend the same amount but make even more. So maybe make that $500 per client in theory versus $1,000. You get the point, basically. From there, some additional nuances and things of that nature, things I like to break out as we do a little bit more tracking, things of that sort, new versus returning customers. So try to focus more on net new, retention strategies where applicable, things like that. With project-based, of course, it's more of a focus on ongoing, just continue to get new customers irrespective. For clients where you can get some sort of retainer for maintenance or something of that nature, it's definitely a good consideration, but it's better to focus a little bit more on trying to get more net new as a result. Within the acquisition costs, it's good to consider a variety of things as well. So your ad spend, for example, content budget, agency fee if applicable, things of that sort. So like when you get that new client, how much does that cost baked in overall? Because like that calculation can really change what your ROI initially is overall, and what it could be in the future too, because there's things that you could reduce or increase over time, or flip side for the revenue, reduce or increase depending upon how it's calculated. Industry as well, like I mentioned before, and then total addressable market, which you're probably either seeing or have seen with your business search. So say if you're in Albuquerque versus Los Angeles, two very different markets for HVAC overall, very different demands, and it's good to consider that relative to your ROI, whether or not that's let's see, going down the line. Part of this too, I like to bake in some of different things for assumptions. Usually 10 to 20% is my benchmark, but that varies depending upon the course. For some folks, it's a little less if we want to be more aggressive about on, for example, things like that. So make that more like 5 to 10% buffer. To test, say, different products, different services, expanding to different cities. The current city you're in, it might be a little bit higher, of course, because there might be that assumption that you might get a lower ROI or next to no ROI from like an area you don't have a reputation in quite yet. But it's good to know that just outside the goal, like, okay, this is what I need to spend in order to get this. And this is where like the tangible stuff comes into play a little bit more. So this is honestly where you can get more of the return too with your marketing efforts, and where the good versus great marketers come into play. So some things that I like to consider with different marketing efforts, whether it's Google ads, SEO, Facebook ads, whatever the channel is, figure out who you're marketing to, make sure you focus on them more. What exactly is prompting them to like use your services, like the pain points. Like some of this might be obvious, of course, to you, but in some cases I find it's good to go through this exercise just to figure it out from like somebody else's perspective, like mainly their customer's perspective, what they're prioritizing, what their key needs are as a result. So for example, if there are like 500 HVAC techs in, for example, I'm in Denver, Colorado. So if there's 500 of those in Denver, Colorado, why are they going with you versus somebody else? Is there a priority or need you're meeting, or a differentiator that you're bringing to market versus somebody else? That kind of gets in that so what factor as well too, like why you versus somebody else. And the other thing as well too is like why are they going to come back? Somewhat marketing side of things, but also like it's related for returning customers ongoing, like making sure you build up those reviews, you keep up that rapport, you're actually like helping them and continuing to provide value during and after the service, which is great for email marketing campaigns and things of that nature. But the reason I say this is important is, say, for example, if you know or you realize that most of your audience is like older women, for example, like one of my e-commerce clients, like most of their apparel and their custom prints are sold to women 50 and plus. When we cut out the younger women, the younger men, we're able to save 20% of our spend and use that same budget, so the exact same budget, towards that older women demographic, which helped us increase our revenue without even increasing our budgets. That's my point for, say, HVAC or plumbing or roofing, same thing there as well too. If you know your audience, you can focus on it more. You should be able to spend that same budget and get even more. Actually, before we get into that, since that was a decent bit of stuff, any questions on any of that material? Do you want any more details or anything like that? Okay, cool. All right. What I like to start out with as well too, like say if I'm buying this business, like this is going to be, or this is your life for a long period of time, I like to run through a little exercise to like do some initial persona research. Like I have a couple of examples of this in the next slide for like how I like to do that. So some examples of this, like I like to group them up. So say if it's like older women, older men, younger women, like there might be one audience that's your dominant audience that you know is going to buy from you. They buy 80% of whatever your service is. There's that 20% that could be even larger. You want to get to know a little bit more. And then there might be a new audience, which could be a nice expansion audience, whether they're in a new location in the same like older audience, or there's just something different about them that hasn't quite piqued the business's interest to like target them yet, but it'd be worthwhile. I like to go through this to say like, all right, what exactly are we trying to sell them? What is the problem we're trying to solve with what we're trying to sell them? What solution does this product provide problem to solve? What hooks, like one sentence or less, we're talking like 3 to 8 words, give or take, like what hooks can we use to get their attention for our product to solve their problem? And then I like doing a little bit of research and things of that nature. This is a little bit of a tangent, but several years ago, I used to do some work in cosmetics in particular. As you might imagine, I've never used cosmetics ever, surprise, surprise. So I want to do a lot of research on Quora, Reddit, Facebook, see how people are commenting about it, thinking about it, how they talk about it, which is where the lingo component comes into play. Same thing for your local area to see what your competitors' reviews are, how they're talking about it, if there's a good one, a bad one, yours as well too, for example. And then ideally look at some industry reports and things of that nature. Again, this is stuff you can all do, but this is why I'd also recommend getting a consultant, marketing agency, things like that. Like a good one will do this alongside with you. I would say as an owner, and especially like having such a high investment in like the business, you really ought to do some of this with them as well too, to get to know your customer really well. Because like not only is it good for like the digital marketing side, but it can be good for like the business as a whole. A second example, so I've done some work with like the Met Museum, for example, with like their store in particular. They have a little bit of an older audience, so even older than like the 50s side of things. What we've done in the past is like really old research, but basically look at like kind of a hypothetical background, pain points they have, needs, priorities and motivation, and then like kind of just give like a gist to visualize it a little bit more. That can help in theory with trying to empathize more with your customer to a certain extent and figure out like how you craft your messaging and the messaging on your landing page, like for ad copy and for landing page, to improve your odds of getting them to do business with you versus somebody else. This also helps with next step for creating a killer offer. This is where I would recommend putting a lot more time as well too, because if you're just offering HVAC services or plumbing services, that's wonderful. And there's a demand in the market and it's an excellent time to be in home services, of course, just looking at like industry research, things of that nature. However, to differentiate yourself further, get some more business, there's some things you might want to consider to get people in, especially initially. So some examples of this could be some HVAC folks like to do an inspection twice a year, and we'll include some basic maintenance with that inspection. So they'll do that, but you need to sign up, which is like recurring revenue for you, which is great. What's great for the client, whether it's residential or commercial, is they can make sure that their system's safe and sound, ready to go. So their heater, their boilers are good to go, like once the winter starts, and like their AC unit's good to go once the summer starts. Minor example of that, I mean, you could also show like the value of that too, like do like the words like a total economic value calculation. Basically, I wouldn't do that literally with somebody, but it's like saying like this in theory is worth say like $1,500, but we're only going to charge you like $500 just to do this. The benefit is you get recurring revenue and the ability to like build up the trust and the relationship with them. For them, obviously, they save that $1,000 with you instead. So like little things like that can be very helpful, or even like doing like the first maintenance check for free or something along those lines. It's just thinking like, what would my customer care about, and like why is it relevant to them? So like, for example, the relevance is they want to make sure the system's working and works consistently throughout the season. It's simple. Like I try to keep it to a sentence or two. Obviously for presentation purposes, to explain something further, it's a little tricky to do that, but I try to like write it down. Or what I like to do like for my clients is write down the different tags and then share it with the client, and then we go through it in a brainstorming session to make life easier. Think about the outcome. So like, what is my client going to get by doing this? Like, what is it exactly that they should expect, and what risk are they overcoming as a result of this? So the risk might be that the system might not work anyways, because you're bringing in experienced tech. To alleviate that, you could share things like, our techs have blank number of years of experience. They're certified, like they're like NATE certified or like blank type of certified, things of that sort. The final pieces as well to this is urgency. Like, why do this now versus like later, a year later? Why should I care about this right now? The urgency might be seasonality. It might be that their system's currently broken right now. They might have an unreliable tech or something of that sort. It's good to go through this though and think through this for like some killer offers, or a killer offer of some kind that like just really differentiates itself. I mean, you've probably seen this before when like, probably not really thinking about it, right? But you've probably seen this before when like you're going into the market for something like this. Like I like to think of like Pet Boys, for example. Like you get the 4th tire free. I mean, obviously everybody needs 4 tires, right? But say if like you're in the market for new tires, that's still an excellent offer. It's basically 25% off. Like nobody else has it, and it's like a great way of thinking about it lingo wise. So doing that same thing for your business can be effective to help it stand out more. The final tidbit, and this is like part of the empathy with the persona research as well too, is effort sacrifice. Like, how much is this going to cost me as a consumer? How long is it going to take? And what am I getting out of this? And like, when am I getting it, basically? Like this could be as basic as they pay the $5,000, they get the system, it takes 3 days, right? Some things could be a little bit more nuanced there, but it's definitely good to consider these different components. Some of this I'd recommend, like as a business owner, like you might just want to do some of this and work in tandem with like an agency or a consultant of some sort. In other cases, like it's great to work with an agency to get their perspective as well too. Like it's kind of tricky at times because you might be too far into the weeds. It's hard to like really relate from a digital marketing perspective for some of these things. So it's good to get like additional insights from that perspective. And then here's just the basic things I wrote down. I'll have like some of these like notes from the slides afterwards, of course. And just some final tidbits for your ROI. So if you own a business or you're about to own a business, some really basic things I would do in the first 90 days. So like figure out what your ROI is. Years ago during COVID, I did the same presentation for Google Ads, specifically like how to improve your return from Google Ads. And there are about 30 people in the audience that said, like, show of hands, how many of you know what your budget is for Google Ads? No one know what your budget is for your marketing. Nobody showed their hands. If you know your budget and you know what to expect from that, you're ahead of a lot of folks. Or if you don't, like I said before, it may seem arduous and kind of tricky, but even just having a general idea of that can puts you way ahead of somebody else that has no clue. That and bringing somebody else in to help you out with that can be pretty useful to do it hand in hand. This second part sounds obvious as well too, but it's a matter of measurement as well. So let's say you're getting a 3-to-1 return on SEO and you're getting a 5-to-1 return on Facebook ads, like Meta, like Facebook, Instagram, so on and so forth. If you're looking for a 4-to-1 return, then Facebook ads is exceeding that. You should try to look for ways to spend more on Facebook to make more, in theory. That sounds pretty simple, but it takes a little bit of time to look through the channels, figure out what you're getting, figure out how to spend more on that channel. The same thing generally goes for like any channel or strategically speaking. So that could be emails, like making more emails, following up more consistently, get some more lists, build up those lists with like reach and things of that sort. Like the point is figure out where you're getting your best return, spend more time on that channel, or like max 2 channels to start with, depending upon the size and scale of your business. I'd recommend doing that so you have like 1 or 2 specific channels where you know you're just really strong and like you're doing great work. Or for example, for a lot of your businesses, you might be getting a lot of referral, which is fantastic. So finding 1 to 2 other channels to diversify to would be fantastic as well, to say like, all right, for example, I like Google for SEO or paid media because search is intense. People are looking for things in the moment. It's not disruptive marketing. It's something where people have a direct pain point, like how to fix my HVAC techs near me. Like if they're looking up those terms, that's probably very likely they're looking up like some sort of HVAC business like yours. I think that goes into testing as well too, because the same thing could be said like, all right, if you're doing Google ads, Google business, so on and so forth, it might be good to test Facebook out, do some more some social outreach, some influencer marketing or email. The point is you could change up where you are to try to get a larger addressable market, because some folks, they like to search for things on social media. Some like Google, some like an old like fashioned flyer. It depends. And the final thing, like we're doing with like the exercise before, go through and create a killer offer and know your customer more. I'd recommend doing that in the first 90 days, like knowing your team. Like your team is like the most crucial thing, but the same thing goes for your customers after the fact as well too. Like getting to know them, why they do business with you and why new customers would do business with you is essential. And it shouldn't take too much time. And then also having somebody else work with you on that can be very effective, not just now, but in the years to come. So you know where to go to find the right people and where not to go if like that's where the wrong people are. Long, kind of like the business plan, same thing. It's good to have like a marketing plan as well too there. I like to plan out 90 days initially and then do long-term planning for like 1 to 3 years out after the fact, especially with like a new client. It's good to, or like say if you're just getting the business too, it's good to figure out how things go with the first 90 days to say like with really low expectations, what could I do? Could I establish myself on a new channel? Could I increase my presence by 20%? Like see what you can do and then build a long-term plan based upon what you've like determined, with some milestones to adjust things, say around like the half-year mark, year mark, so on and so forth. Few other things as well too. I like to test. Like I like to test a lot, because like the other thing is, even if you are successful in a certain channel, doesn't mean it's going to be that way tomorrow. It's good to figure out how customer needs evolve and how you can evolve with them too over time conceptually. A lot of this is more just the specifics, but this goes back to like the demographics, testing different locations, testing new product offerings. Could be the pricing, like the way it looks. Is it bundled or not? Is it like individual things and adding in dynamic pricing? For example, is there something about the service that they want more versus other aspects of the service? Like what's the lead in versus like what are the ongoing services that are more desirable versus not? Another tidbit, not here, but just a general bonus I'd put down is customer surveys, getting some customer insights and things of that sort. It could be like, even if it's just like 2-3 questions, like, what'd you think of the service? Would you do business with us again? And what exactly did you like or dislike? Just to get their opinions and see how they think about this stuff, to improve your testing and like improve like what you're doing, not like from a marketing perspective, but for the business as a whole. Another general tip, this is just something I like to do in ad accounts, but it can apply to other channels as well to a certain degree. Like I like to start small with a lower budget, get as efficient as possible. So say if we're at like a 5-to-1 like ROAS, so we're spending $1,000 a month getting $5,000 in like revenue. Obviously that would not be a great business, but hypothetically, just roll with me on this. Say if we did that, but we could spend 1,000 and get 10,000, right? I would want to do that at a smaller scale, because as you scale up and with economies of scale, over time, you don't see the returns as much. Usually there are diminishing returns on certain channels because there's cost efficiencies, because it costs more to scale over time. So it's good to get that efficiency at a smaller scale, then gradually grow from there. Besides that, I also like to do scaling gradually over time as well. So like it can be exciting to see like you have the ability to 5x your growth based upon the total addressable market in Google Ads and Facebook, right? But it might not be recommended to do that overnight because you might lose your return. So it's good to do it over time in gradual increments, say over 2 weeks, 4 weeks, so on and so forth, to get those returns. But those things combined with like a good plan and like implementing that plan and following up on that plan usually are what helps me and my clients succeed. What doesn't is say if like things are being done aimlessly, like you're just creating a campaign for the sake of, or you're creating an email for the sake of, not the best. But obviously you have to do what you have to do. But I recommend taking the extra time either on your own with your business partners or with somebody with digital marketing experience, like a consultant or an agency, to figure this stuff out. But that's what I got. We got about 30 minutes. Kyle, go ahead.
Hey, Oliver, really nice presentation. I'm a digital marketer myself. I without stealing your thunder, because I feel like you did a really good job. Do you have any tools that you recommend? I know like the AEs are, a lot of them are really kind of technology forward. I don't know, like I personally have loved like Surfer SEO, like really simple, right, way for like even a business owner that doesn't know much about marketing to go and do the research, or like any LLMs that you felt like have done a better job over others, or anything else that you'd recommend on like the toolkit side?
That's it. I mean, there's so many. Like, do you mean for SEO specifically, or like?
No, like I think like for just like your average person that would be just getting started, like not specific to SEO. That I just threw that one out there.
Sure. I think project management's the name of the game to a certain degree, like knowing what to do and when to do it at first. So like Monday.com, I like that, or just a classic Excel spreadsheet, to be honest, just to like get something organized and going. For SEO, besides that, Ahrefs, like if you plug that in with you can get a free version with your search console. If like you scroll down, it's obviously good to have an agency or pay a little bit more because you get more of the in-depth insights and things like that. So that combined with Surfer is great overall. Besides that, I like SEMrush for the competitor insights. You can get good paid version for that as well too, for certain things. But yeah, I mean, overall, if you're talking about like large language models, such and such, I like ChatGPT for creative, for example, more for brainstorming together, to say like, if you give it a very specific prompt, what can you get as a result? So like, say if like you share certain components of like your offer, see how it like phrases it or describes it, or look for different words or like ways to say it. But there's other tools besides that as well, like both free and not so free. Like I like Facebook, of course, because it's neat. It's kind of messy to get around in, obviously, nowadays, because like they keep changing things up. But yeah, I mean, the tools themselves, most of them, as you probably know, being a digital marketer, are free or pretty low cost. It's just how the tools are used together, which is why I go back to the original thing. Monday.com, Excel spreadsheet, like have some way of organizing yourself. Yeah.
I like it.
Cool. Anyone else?
This seems like I can see where it would work well with B2C, because you can put stuff out there and you get a quick, rapid feedback loop. What about more B2B environments where the customers are smaller or have a much longer pipeline and lead time, where, yeah, it could have been my email campaign is the most amazing, but I won't know that for 6 months, and maybe I've moved on to 3 other attempts at Facebook ads or something like that and thinks the email doesn't work?
That is a great question, Nick. And I probably should have said this with Kyle's question as well too, but Google Analytics and HubSpot, I like those tools, especially for B2B. connecting those two can be effective for attribution. There's some other things like Hyros, for example, can be great for figuring that out to a certain degree and getting some like in-account optimizations, things that work. But for B2B, I like to look at the lead metrics versus the lag, to be honest, to figure some of this stuff out as well. So like, how many leads did it take me to get a marketing qualified lead, and how many marketing qualified leads to get a sales qualified lead, and then how good is my close rate for my sales team? Because then after that, it's kind of your marketing, it's kind of your sales capabilities for like following up, building the relationship, things of that sort. Documenting all of that can be very effective. So like, I'm a big fan of organization, analytics, and like documenting this stuff. So like, you know what the process is, so then you can figure out how to improve it overall. So if you know it takes like 20 leads to get, it's the same thing for B2B. If it takes like 20 leads to get one sale, your sales cycle might be longer, so like 6 months instead of like a week, for example. But I would figure that stuff out to then figure out like, what can I adjust to gradually improve things over time? It might seem a little hand wavy at first, but eventually you should be able to like figure out some little nuances to improve and refine. I still like good lead mags and things like that. So like, say like this webinar, for example, or like something like a good like free offer of some kind. Like one of my clients there in estate settlement, and one of the things we do is a free estate settlement assessment. So you get the assessment for probate, for example, and then from there you can pay for the tool to help you go through probate. So like, you spend fewer hours with the lawyer, and the lawyer gets more information right away to help you get through probate. It's not like legally guaranteed, yada yada. But the point is like, that's why I like the offer as well too, besides organizing things effectively, especially with B2B, figuring that out and testing it's great.
Yeah, so it sounds like I really would have multiple hypotheses or experiments running at once, just because I have a long lead time on feedback and even getting a lead to my sales team. And there's nothing wrong with that. I really would have to put a whole bunch of things out there, and it's not a spray. It really is. I'm just placing several bets in parallel. Yeah. Okay. Helpful.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I mean, I would again like write down some different like offers and like what you think are things that start the conversation out really from a B2B perspective too. Because
it goes back to your value prop. What is the pain? Like your list of things there. Like make sure you still have those dialed in. So when you have the conversation, you're bucketing them to those personas and then just hitting them with all the value props against it.
Pretty much, yes. That's it, quote unquote. It takes months, but yeah.
I know, you make it look easy. The other thing, this is all, I mean, very focused work and right, and it should be done. And then I go to a trade show and I see people just flip out for a branded water bottle at a booth. And they're like, I want to do business with that person. They have glittery pens. Like, do you have any experience on that softer side of human emotion?
I mean, as a human being, I would like to say so. But
yeah, it seems like deals can be done just by having the tchotchkes.
I think yes, and like that's like brand, right? Like what I'm talking about is a little bit more performance marketing related. I'm more of a numbers guy to a certain degree. I like to figure out how to provide people value and how to be useful. Like that's how I built my career and help clients succeed. For brand, like a good example is like Kylie Jenner just came out with her new it's this like Sprinter lemonade type of thing, and she had a Coachella. It's not my type of brand, you can kind of tell the way I'm talking about it, but she doesn't really have much of a differentiator, like you're saying. She just like introduced it at Coachella, like this concert, and just handed out a bunch of them, right? It's her brand that really sold it, not necessarily like there's something like this will help you live longer or like you have more energy or anything like that. With the branded side of things, if you have a cool looking water bottle, that could be something too, because it helps people like self-actualize. But yeah, I would think about it, like think about like things that are useful like that and like what that budget might look like. For example, another one of my clients, they're doing a free mobile medical clinic giveaway. Like it seems pretty useful, right? Because it is. Ultimately, a lot of like these different like systems need more than just one clinic, for example. Like I'd like to figure out stuff like that. And yeah, they have like the free water bottles, tchotchkes, things like that to like start the conversation. But yeah, it depends. I mean, recommend doing the research first and then figuring some of that stuff out. But yeah, cool. Chachki can definitely help.
Yeah, thanks.
Of course. Larry, how's it going, Larry?
Yo, Oliver. Hey, it's good to see you again.
Nice to see you too.
My question, I don't know if you covered this, maybe you did. I'm still in the looking phase, so I have no idea. A lot of what you're saying is just like stuff that's future me has to deal with. But once you get the business, how soon do you recommend in terms of starting to tweak with the marketing, assuming that I understand where the spending is and stuff like that?
Oh man, that's a great question. I like to do analytics first and then assess if there's some immediate things. Like there's some clients, for example, that don't have tracking or have no Google Ads account, no Google Analytics, which case we need to do more now, right?
Mhm.
I start with basic things that can be implemented relatively quickly and changed relatively quickly. So say if you introduce a new blog piece, like if you want a different topic out there, like that's not like it's low risk, potentially high reward, right? I wouldn't necessarily shut off a whole channel just for the sake of, for example, unless you have some really meaningful data behind it. Like I like to assess in the first 30 days and then adjust unless there's things like that where it's like, okay, here's a really easy win. Let's get this done the first week.
And then follow up, I mean, how much total spend do you, like once you kind of have an idea, what's the range, I guess, it'd be more of a range of the spend that would shift. You had mentioned setting aside a certain percentage as a buffer, but in terms of just like once you start recognizing stuff, you just start shifting based on the analysis and then follow the numbers?
Another great question, man. Appreciate it. Okay, two things to this. Like one is the ambiguous question because it's very true. It depends. So like things like I mentioned this before, but I'll go through some of this stuff like your total addressable market might change that up for like how much you need to spend, how many leads it takes to get you a client. That changes how much you need to spend as well too. Like the ROI calculation then backs into how much you need to spend overall as well. So let's go back to that slide actually, because I think that's pretty useful. Of course. Okay, here, this little tidbit. So let's say you make 5K for each client, you need to spend 1K to get a client. To get 250K a month, that means you need 50 clients. Very hypothetical, right? There's a lot of different assumptions and such. That means like your budget should be 50K.
Okay.
Like that's what you should be getting. Now, are there that many people that need your service? Is this something that you can even spend on because there's that many searchers or things like that? Who knows? Besides that, my specifics, I like to spend, and this is my thing, like if you ask a bunch of different people, they'll give you different questions. I would spend about $5,000 a month, perhaps a little bit more depending upon your market size. So say if you're in a New York or Los Angeles versus say like an Albuquerque or Des Moines or something of that sort. But I like $5,000 because for a lot of things, I like to look for around 2,000 to 5,000 impressions for certain things, for certain keywords, certain creative, for like landing page, things like that, to then get meaningful insights. And I ideally like to spend sooner so we get the insights sooner and then improve upon it later. In a lot of cases, what I really like about that as well too is like that spend should also be generating a meaningful return as well. So it's not like you're spending it, it's going into a bottomless pit somewhere. It's you're spending it and you're getting something out of it. That's my steadfast. I do that and either pull back, so take that $5,000, turn it into like $3,000 a month, save a little bit more, get a little more efficient. Like yeah, I'm jumping around a little bit, but to just illustrate the points. Get as efficient as possible at a really small scale after doing that testing and say like, okay, this creative worked, this keyword, so on and so forth. Lower it by like 20 to 50% and then grow from there. And mind you, this varies by client, this varies by what you're offering, things of that sort. There's a lot of variable factors, but that's how I like to make it a little bit more specific. Yeah.
Thanks. Thanks a lot.
Of course. Eric.
Hi. Hey, I've owned a home service business for a while and struggled with some of these things that you're talking about here. It's very hard to do on your own because, you know, the tools change and there's a lot of tools and you're busy fighting fires and that kind of thing. So often I outsource this kind of thing, but I've also struggled with how do I find the right company to do this, especially SEO. Like some of the paid stuff is pretty quick because you spend money, you see the results, and then you can tweak from there. But SEO is more of a longer game. And so I feel like I have to invest for a year with somebody before I can tell if they're any good. And by that time, I've spent a lot of money and made a pretty big commitment. Any tips for like evaluating whether a marketing agency is going to be able to deliver?
That's a great question. In particular, because like obviously that's what's going to make you successful or not, like, you know, betting on the right horse, essentially. A few things within that. One, I like to find in both ends, like somebody you want to partner with. So somebody that like you see as providing value week in, week out. Like one of my clients when I initially started off, so like what I like to do is like a free audit, free project workflow for the first 90 days. And if you like everything, great, we just execute on that. Besides that, I mean, that's dandy and all, because you probably get that. Like there's about 14,000 marketing agencies in the US alone. So surprise, surprise, there are other options, and there are like tons of consultants out there. Somebody that cares about your business, that wants to partner with you, I think that's like a good thing to suss out. And it would be good to figure that out in the first like 1 to 3 months, or in like a few weeks, just having some initial rapport. Like that's why I like doing the free project, to be honest, because like part of it's like see where things are, assess things, kind of diagnose it from like a literal numbers perspective, because it also shows like, does this person know what they're talking about? But besides that, like, are you getting a meaningful partner here that actually cares about what you're doing, that knows what they're doing? Or are they just somebody that's like a recent college grad who's just working on your account, or somebody outsourced that like you're one of like hundreds of clients in their portfolio and they spend like 5 minutes a week on you? How do you know they care is you just have conversations like this, right? You know who you're working with, and like I like to start with that. But besides that is obviously like the end results too. So like service is one side of things. I look for the partnership if I was in your shoes. The other side is like performance. Like from your side, knowing what you want and making sure it's grounded is excellent, and that attracts higher quality marketers at the end of the day, versus like if you want something like really high pie in the sky, or you really don't know what you want, sometimes that can be tricky, and that can attract people to just say, oh yeah, I'll just do it. Like you have a 5-to-1 return, but you want a 25-to-1 return. I'll just randomly do that and find the clients, pick them off the street for you. So like if you have something that's practical, usually that attracts like the right person. And the other thing, of course, is paying more, but also like having that trial period to assess these things, and having benchmarks so you can assess these things too as well, to say like, did this work out or not, in a very tangible way. And keep doing it as well too. Like I shouldn't say this to a certain degree, but I believe in this a lot more. As how I do business. Like keep doing it on an ongoing basis and figure out how you grow together, whether that's maintain things, keeping that 5-to-1 ROI over like a 5-year period, or that's like you want to grow your business and double it in the next 5 years. Like things like that. But yeah, I look for the partnership more, know what you want, and like ask these questions and try to get like a free project in with them. Not like, don't like try to like come off like you're ripping somebody off, right? But like, you know, like see if they have a free audit, see if they have a free assessment, something to show like their expertise, and then see if you can like, instead of getting locked into like, this is the other problem I see too with your spending a bunch is, or a lot of people spend a bunch is, you're locked into 6 months, you're locked into a year. In the first month, you realize, oh, this was the wrong decision. Like if it's just 1 month, that could be good. Because then you can always reassess and things of that nature if you're really dissatisfied. But that's the tidbits. Does that, I know that's a lot, but does that make sense?
It does. The problem is, like you mentioned, there's 14,000 of these people, and you know the barrier to entry on this is like 0, and so it's tougher than I would have expected to find somebody that can really deliver. But good insights. Thank you for that.
Yeah, and I'm happy. Like I was gonna say this at the very end, but I do free audits in project workflow, so I'm happy to do that with you if like you need something in particular. Now, will say as well too, if it's something that I and team can help with, wonderful. If it's something that I can't with, I'll try to recommend you to somebody in particular, because that's the other thing too. So with besides the past 5.5 years, I used to work at WordStream and another agency, so I know some other folks in the industry in that perspective. I can't necessarily guarantee everything will be peachy keen, but that is somewhere I can like help you out at least. It's a very easy thing to do. But
Awesome.
cool.
Thank you.
Delana, Did I say that right?
Hi, Oliver. It's Delnata.
Del not. You appreciate that. I'm terrible with names.
So, no worries. But for me, like where I am is when I started looking at service-based business and supply chain businesses, and I realized during my process, I have to actually start an acquisitions company because there were things that I was needing along the way and I didn't have the proper tools. And it was like, oh, I have to be prepared to acquire another business. And that's something that is just like, oh, I'm not prepared for this because even the businesses that I've, went into LOI with or went into negotiations, they were needing things for me that I wasn't prepared for. So, my question to you is, I loved all the emphasis on the ROI clarity. I had a question regarding like what is the biggest shift that you've seen? Like what really makes the needle moves? Like if we're working with businesses that have like and service-based businesses particularly that have EBITDA of 1 million and above. Have you ever worked with businesses like that? And so yeah, so I was asking what moves the needle for them?
That's a great question. It's a similar thing, but like at scale, it's harder to go from like 1 million to 2 million, for example, versus going from say like 50K to 100K.
Hmm.
There's a lot more involved, and usually at that phase, there's a couple of different channels or multiple channels. Like the way I'd put it analogy wise is like you're making one strong leg to your table. Eventually, when you get to that phase or the phase above it, you have multiple strong legs. Like one former client of mine for 3 years is in fire safety, for example, and life safety. So a lot of the things that they did, we just focused on Google Ads to start with, right? And they had like a lot of great referrals. As you can imagine, for a lot of home-based services, like in some cases, they've just built up their reputation over the years where people just know them. So in some cases, you can very well get to that scale because you only need a certain number of clients. There's a certain demand. You're like one of the most well-known names in town. But then to scale further, you need the additional channels. I think the other thing too is process and team as well. So besides that, it might even be good to consider like not only hiring the agency, but hiring somebody in your in-house team, like a marketing manager, marketing coordinator, like things of that sort where they can handle the day-to-day pretty well because there's like a lot of ongoing components and such. Like say, for example, there's a recent Google update in March. So if you had a bunch of AI-based content, you got flagged most likely. But having somebody to manage that both internally to like recognize it and externally to like figure out what changes to make is important. Like the obvious thing would be like, let's update all our content. The other thing might be, let's add in some human changes with the AI content. But my point is that that is a large scale, not to put anything to it, but to be honest, I've worked it with like even larger scale clients, like the ones that like, they've been acquired for like multiple billions. One, for example, is Acquira, which they're more in like the SaaS space in particular, but the same exact thing applied there as well too, and they're acquiring different companies. And the same thing applies for like that as well. So like at that larger scale, then it's like how do different business units work together and how does the marketing work together? But at the scale in between like smaller scale operation, like 5 to 15 employees versus like 15 to like 100 employees, for example, it's about figuring out the process, and it's also about figuring out which channels you should be on because you're on multiple channels and like trying to like build up those additional legs to the table. If that makes sense.
Okay. Oh yeah, that does make sense. So you're just saying they just need to figure out their process basically and who.
Because they might not have it at all, or they have
Yeah.
a little bit of one, but like say they're good at SEO, but not so good
Mhm.
at Google Ads, or they're doing SEO, but they're not doing anything for Google Ads yet, or for some of them, they have a bunch of referrals, they barely have a site, and they're not doing anything online. That's a huge opportunity especially if you find something that's pre-LOI like that. There are some businesses where it has a great reputation. And then if you layer on something like Google My Business, local service ads, Google Ads, well, you might just have some additional business there.
Mm.
That type of scale.
Yeah, so that's what's been occurring. Like I noticed that a lot of these businesses, they don't have a lot of technology, or they have a little bit of technology, and then it's like, okay, well, what can I bring? What else besides like operational stuff, which is that's normally what I do is operations. What else can I bring? But and what tools can I offer to bring value to the business and to expand what they already have? Because I also do what I'll do is also offer consulting. If they don't want to, if they're not ready for sale, I'll consult with them. And so I wanted to see like, how can I bring the value to them, and what other tools that I could bring to them that maybe they don't have.
I mean, a few initial ones off the bat. I think if they have a site, wonderful. If they don't, I'd figure out how to like get one in place, just some like basic fundamentals, like something that can like generate leads or like schedule something. So say if you could add like a Calendly plugin, for example, to schedule things with the rep, that could be cool. Service Titan, for example, has some different tools. I've heard it's hit or miss depending upon like whom I've talked with, but that same thing applies to like being able to like integrate that stack. Some freer or cheaper things. I like Google Analytics a lot, to be honest. It's a good site to assess how it's performing and like what channels are performing well versus not. And then add something like HubSpot might be up your alley for what you're talking about specifically, because it's relatively cheap. It's a good place to like store different client data. The reason you'd use that versus Service Titan is it's cheaper and it's faster to integrate. Service Titan might be better because it also helps with like the operations side, not just the marketing side when it comes to that. So it might be getting that stuff in place as a consultant and then buying the business potentially. So like you're kind of like well, I heard on Acquiring Minds, because they did something similar to what you're like saying. They interned to a certain extent. They added this stuff and stuff, like consulting them, things like that. And then they bought the business later on, or in some cases they didn't because various factors, right? It's like a good way to like phase things in. But those are
It's a good way to get in. It's a good way to get in, see what's really going on, and get equity in the company, and then really just kind of decide if you want to move on or if you want to buy the business. Like you, so that's how I use it, because if they're not ready for sale, it's been taking like 6 months, 8 months to a year to get them ready for sale. If they're not ready for that, like that's if you're cold calling and you're making all these calls and you're talking to people and they may want to sell, but if they haven't prepared their business, if they don't have a succession plan and they haven't planned for selling, now you have to get all of their paperwork together and gather all of these documents that they may not have, and they have not structured for themselves. So that's a process in itself.
I mean, as long as you can determine if it's worthwhile for you to do or not, that seems like a very smart move. Because I think the key thing is like, you could do all this stuff. It's very useful. You're doing it at a low cost. So I think the key thing is you should figure out if this is a business that you can grow by putting this stuff in place, or are there tangible problems that won't be solved even if you have this stuff in place? Like, for example, is there a bad culture with the team? Is a lot of this stuff reliant on the owner and you need to find a way to replace everything the owner does? Again, you've probably been thinking about all this stuff and then some when it comes to the acquisition side of things, but I would think about that and then add that on. And the way I would do it is pick out some projects, like just keep it really simple. So like I'm adding more emphasis on the details for the sake of like helping out here, but I would do something simple like website redesign, like implement a new CRM, and create like data analytics for like better attribution. Like those three things, boom, from a digital marketing perspective, that should help you out really nicely.
Amazing. Thank you so much. I appreciate you.
Yeah, of course. And I'll some notes after. If you have any additional questions as you're doing it, just let me know. Happy to help.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah, cool. Anybody else? Like any other final questions or anything like that? Or final question? Guessing that might be a no. If you do have any questions later, I'm on Slack, or I'll send out, or I'll have Andy send out my information. Like happy to like coordinate with you guys, of course. Like I said before to Eric, applies to everyone here as well too. Happy to do free audit, free project workflow, and go over it with you if you have something. If you don't, happy to just talk shop. Like I love just as you tell, blah, 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 blahing about digital marketing things. So yeah, if you want to just talk through some of this stuff with like a deal that you're working on or something like that, here for you. Otherwise, I hope this was useful and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. We'll have the slides for you a little later, but yeah, have a good one and thank you very much for your time. Appreciate it.
Well, each thanks, Oliver. I'll be sending the presentation shortly along with your contact details. So keep an eye on your inbox. Thanks, guys.
Thank you very much.